The Earth wasn't taken from us in a single day. It was stolen piece by piece, a slow unraveling of everything we thought was permanent. When the sun dimmed for the first time, scientists called it a cosmic anomaly. By the time the global food chains collapsed, we called it survival. And when the stars began to disappear, swallowed by an invisible maw on the edge of the solar system, we called it what it was, the end. This is Captain Rogers, Mission 01 of the ARC project. I recorded into the log, the weight of the moment heavy in my voice. Earth is no longer habitable. Humanity has no choice but to leave. The Odyssey has been retrofitted into the lead vessel of the ARC fleet, a lifeboat for what's left of us. Ahead lies a new beginning. Or nothing at all. The command deck of the Odyssey buzzed with activity. No longer a warship, it had become the brain of the ARC fleet, a convoy of enormous vessels carrying the last remnants of humanity. Scientists, engineers, children, the lucky few who had secured a seat on mankind's final exodus. The Earth below was unrecognizable, its surface scarred by ecological collapse and the encroaching void that consumed entire continents. The Odyssey orbited high above, its sensors scanning for any sign of danger or hope. "Captain," McCall said, breaking my thoughts, "the ARC is ready for launch." But I turned to her, noticing the hesitation in her voice. "What is it?" She gestured to the tactical display, where the dark mass beyond Pluto loomed. "That thing is moving faster than we calculated. If we don't launch now, we'll never make it." The ARC itself was a marvel of human ingenuity, a massive vessel built over decades in low Earth orbit. Its size dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed, a self-contained ecosystem designed to carry us to the nearest habitable system. It wasn't perfect, it was a gamble, but it was all we had. On the day of the launch, Earth's skies were choked with ash and debris. The evacuation was chaos, millions left behind as the final shuttle ascended to join the fleet. From orbit, the planet was a pale shadow of its former self. "Helm," I said, steadying my voice, "initiate the ARC sequence. Let's get everyone into formation." The fleet moved into position, dozens of ships aligning behind the Odyssey as it prepared to lead them into the void. Engines hummed with power, their combined thrust a beacon of defiance against the darkness creeping ever closer. "All vessels reporting ready," McCall said. I nodded. "Then we're leaving." "Helm, set course for the Alpha Centauri system. Engage FTL on my mark." "Mark," I said, and the stars stretched into lines as the fleet leapt into hyperspace. The transition wasn't smooth. The ARC's untested systems struggled to keep up with the strain of faster-than-light travel, and reports of malfunctions flooded in from across the fleet. "Captain," McCall said, "we're getting reports of power failures on the secondary vessels. The Solace and Aurora are losing life support." "Carter," I said over the comms, "get me a solution." "Already working on it," he replied, his voice strained. The ARC's power grid wasn't built for this kind of load. "I can reroute energy from non-critical systems, but it's going to be a rough ride." "Do it," I said. "We can't afford to lose anyone." The crew worked tirelessly, stabilizing the fleet as it hurtled through the void. Every member of the ARC carried the weight of survival on their shoulders, knowing that even a single failure could spell doom for the entire mission. "Captain," McCall said hours later, her voice trembling with something I hadn't heard in weeks. Excitement. "We've picked up a signal." "A signal?" I repeated, stepping toward her console. "From where?" "It's coming from the Tau Ceti system," she said, gesturing to the display. "It's faint, but it's unmistakably artificial." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't alone. "Is it friendly?" I asked. "Too early to tell," she replied. "But it's broadcasting coordinates, like it wants us to follow." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Tau Ceti system was off course, a detour that could delay the ARC's arrival at its intended destination. But if the signal offered refuge or allies, it was a chance we couldn't ignore. In a rare moment of democracy aboard the Odyssey, the decision was put to a vote. The ship's council, consisting of representatives from the various ARC vessels, debated furiously. "This signal could be our salvation," argued Dr. Alara Singh, the lead scientist aboard the Solace. "If there's intelligent life out there, we need to make contact. They might have the resources or knowledge to help us survive. Or it could be a trap, countered Commander Anton Malik, the security chief aboard the Aurora. We're risking the lives of every man, woman, and child on this fleet for a gamble. In the end, the decision fell to me. As captain of the lead vessel, I held the final vote. We follow the signal, I said firmly. If there's even a chance it can help us, we have to take it. Humanity survived this long by taking risks. This won't be the exception. The fleet emerged from hyperspace on the outskirts of the Tau Ceti system. The signal grew stronger, leading us to a massive orbital structure suspended near the system's habitable zone. The station was ancient, its surface scarred and weathered by time, but it was unmistakably functional. Lights flickered across its exterior, and docking ports glowed faintly with invitation. "Captain," McCall said, her voice hushed, "this station, it's not human." "No," I replied, staring at the display. "It's something else entirely." A small team, including myself, McCall, and Carter, boarded the station to investigate. The air inside was thin but breathable, the architecture alien yet strangely familiar. It was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, each one filled with relics of a civilization long gone. At the center of the station, we found the source of the signal, a massive, pulsating device that emitted a faint hum of energy. "It's a generator," Carter said, his eyes wide with amazement. "This thing could power the entire fleet, and then some. But why is it here?" McCall asked. "And who built it?" As we worked to integrate the station's power source into the Ark fleet, an automated message played, its alien voice translated by the station systems. "You who seek refuge, know this. The path forward is one of sacrifice. To survive, you must leave behind what you cannot carry. Choose wisely." The meaning was clear. The station had enough power to sustain part of the fleet, but not all of it. The final decision loomed, and the weight of humanity's survival once again fell on my shoulders. The Odyssey hung in the dark of the Tau Ceti system like a sentinel, its once pristine hull now battered and bruised, carrying the weight of humanity's last hope. Around it, the Ark fleet drifted in uneasy silence, their crews grappling with the impossible decisions thrust upon them. The alien station, our supposed salvation, shimmered faintly in the distance, a quiet reminder that nothing in the universe comes without a cost. "Captain, we've received transmissions from nearly every vessel in the fleet," McCall said, scrolling through the incoming messages on her console. "Most are concerned about the decision to abandon the weaker ships." Her words were careful, but the subtext was clear. People were angry. "We didn't abandon the people," I said firmly. "We evacuated them. The ships were too damaged to keep up, and every second we stay here, we're risking more lives. We had to make the hard call." McCall nodded, though her unease was palpable. "Some don't see it that way. There's talk of dissent." "Let them talk," I said, my tone colder than intended. "We don't have time to second-guess every decision. We keep moving forward, or we die." The tension among the crew was thick, but McCall didn't argue. Instead, she turned her attention back to the holographic display, where the alien station's energy signatures pulsed faintly. Carter's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, you might want to come down to engineering. We found something unexpected." I arrived in the cramped engineering bay to find Carter and his team poring over the data collected from the station's power core. The display showed an intricate web of energy patterns, each one pulsing with a rhythm that felt almost alive. "It's not just an energy source," Carter said, gesturing to the display. "It's communicating." "Communicating?" I repeated, frowning. He nodded. "At first, we thought it was just a power signature, but there's a pattern to it, something intentional. It's like the station is trying to talk to us. Can we decode it?" "We're working on it," he said. "But whatever this thing is, it's far more advanced than anything we've ever encountered. And there's something else." Carter hesitated, his usual confidence replaced by unease. "What is it?" I pressed. "The energy readings are growing," he said. "It's like the station is waking up." The revelation about the station's nature spread quickly through the fleet, and with it came a surge of fear and suspicion. Some saw the station as a blessing, a gift from an advanced civilization that could ensure humanity's survival. Others saw it as a threat, a trap designed to lure us into a false sense of security. On the Aurora, tensions boiled over. Commander Malik, already on edge from the evacuation order, voiced his doubts during a heated council meeting. "This station is playing us," he said, his tone sharp. "You heard the message. Leave behind what you cannot carry. It's testing us, manipulating us. We don't even know what it wants. And what would you have us do?" Dr. Singh countered. "Leave? Abandon the only viable power source we found?" "Yes," Malik snapped. "We should have left this system hours ago. Every second we spend here is another risk we can't afford." The council erupted into arguments, voices overlapping in a cacophony of fear and frustration. I let them bicker for a moment before slamming my hand on the table. "Enough," I barked. The room fell silent. "We don't have the luxury of second-guessing every decision," I said, my voice steady but firm. "This station is our best shot at survival. If it's a trap, we'll deal with it. But running isn't an option." Malik's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue further. The tension in the room was palpable, but the council eventually agreed to stay. Though the divide among the fleet was growing deeper by the hour, back on the station, Carter and his team worked tirelessly to integrate its power core into the ARC systems. The process was slow and fraught with complications, the alien technology resisting every attempt to control it. "This thing isn't just advanced," Carter muttered as he adjusted the interface. "It's temperamental, like it knows we're trying to harness it." I watched as the team worked, their movements precise but hesitant. The air in the room was heavy with the unspoken fear that the station might lash out at any moment. "Keep at it," I said, though the unease in my chest was growing. "We need that power online before we can even think about leaving this system." Hours later, the station's systems activated again. The automated voice echoed through the fleet, but this time, the message was different. "You seek survival," it said, its tone cold and deliberate. "But survival requires sacrifice. To claim the path forward, you must surrender what you hold most dear." The words sent a shiver down my spine. What did it mean by surrender? Carter's voice came over the comms moments later. "Captain, we've got a problem. The station's energy output just spiked. It's activating something." "Activating what?" I asked. "We're not sure," he replied. "But whatever it is, it's big." The answer came moments later. The station began to shift, its structure warping as tendrils of energy snaked out into the void. The tendrils reached toward the fleet, latching onto the weaker ships and draining their power. "Captain," McCall shouted, "the station is attacking the fleet." "Carter, shut it down," I ordered. "I'm trying," he replied, his voice frantic. "But the station's systems are overriding everything." The tendrils continued to spread, their energy pulsing as they consumed the ARC's ships. On the display, I could see the smaller vessels flickering as their power levels dropped. "We're losing them," McCall said, her voice trembling. "Not yet," I said, my jaw tightening. "Get me on that station. Now." I led a small team back to the station, determined to sever its connection to the fleet. The halls were darker now, the faint glow replaced by an ominous red light that pulsed in time with the energy tendrils. "Captain," Carter said as we reached the core chamber, "this thing isn't just a power source. It's alive, and it's trying to decide whether we're worth saving." The core itself was a massive crystalline structure, its surface shifting with patterns of light that seemed almost sentient. As we approached, the automated voice returned. "You seek refuge," it said, "but you bring chaos. Prove your worth or be consumed." The core flared brightly, and the chamber shook violently. The tendrils lashed out, forcing us to take cover. "Carter, can you disable it?" I shouted over the noise. "Not without destroying the station," he replied. "Then do it." Carter worked quickly, his hands moving over the alien interface as the rest of us fought to keep the tendrils at bay. The core's light grew brighter, its energy surging as it fought back against our intrusion. "Almost there," Carter shouted. The core flared one final time before shattering, its energy imploding in a blinding wave that shook the station to its foundations back aboard the Odyssey. The fleet drifted in uneasy silence. The station was gone, its power core destroyed, but the cost of our survival was clear. "We lost 3 ships," McCall said quietly, her voice heavy with grief. "And thousands of people." I nodded, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "We did what we had to do." "And what did it cost us?" she asked. "Everything," I said softly. The fleet limped away from the wreckage of the alien station, its glowing tendrils now shattered and dark. We had won, but it didn't feel like victory. The Ark fleet had survived, but not intact. 3 vessels were gone, consumed by the station's hunger for energy, and thousands of lives had been extinguished. On the bridge of the Odyssey, the weight of those sacrifices pressed down on me. The faces of those we couldn't save haunted every decision I made, every word I spoke. Humanity had survived, but at what cost? "Captain," McCall said quietly, pulling my attention to her console. "The surviving vessels are reporting critical systems failures. We've redistributed the power from the station, but it's not enough to stabilize the fleet." The holographic display showed the fleet's status: shields flickering, engines barely holding together, life support systems strained to their limits. "How long can we last?" I asked. "Maybe a few days," she replied grimly. "A week at best." "And the civilians?" "They're exhausted," she said. "Morale is fragile." I nodded, though the words felt meaningless. The survivors had endured so much: Earth's collapse, the chaos of evacuation, and now the slow realization that even the Ark might not be enough to save them. The fleet drifted in silence for hours, the weight of uncertainty thick in the air. Then, a faint ping echoed across the comms, breaking the stillness. "Captain," McCall said, her voice sharp with urgency, "we're picking up another signal." The bridge crew tensed. The last signal we had followed had led us to the alien station, a beacon of both salvation and destruction. "Origin?" I asked. "It's coming from the outer edge of the system," she replied. "It's weak, but definitely artificial." "Put it on speakers," I said. The comms crackled, and a voice, distorted but undeniably human, emerged from the static. "This is the beacon, Colony Ship 27. If anyone is receiving this, we require assistance. Repeat, this is the beacon. We are under attack." The message repeated, each word sending a chill down my spine. "Colony Ship 27, McCall murmured. "That's one of the early Ark prototypes. It was launched decades ago, long before the collapse." "Decades?" I said. "How is it still operational?" "That's the mystery," she replied. "But if the beacon is out there, it might have the resources we need to survive." The council convened once more, the tension among its members heavier than ever. "Captain," Malik began, his voice hard, "we can't afford to follow another signal. The last one cost us 3 ships and thousands of lives. What if this is another trap? And what if it's not?" Dr. Singh countered. "If the beacon is still functional, it could have supplies, technology, anything to keep us alive. We barely survived the last detour," Malik snapped. "If we make the wrong choice again, we lose everything." The arguments continued, each side fiercely defending its position. But the decision ultimately fell to me. "Enough," I said, silencing the room. "We're going after the beacon. If there's even a chance it can help us, we have to take it." Malik glared but didn't argue further. The council disbanded, and preparations for the journey began. The fleet moved cautiously toward the outer edge of the Tau Ceti system, the Odyssey leading the way. The signal grew stronger as we approached, guiding us to a dense asteroid field. "Captain," McCall said, studying the readings, "the beacon is transmitting from within the field. It's heavily damaged, but it's still operational. Any signs of hostiles?" I asked. "Nothing on sensors," she replied. "Helm, bring us in closer," I ordered. "McCall, alert the fleet to hold position. We'll investigate first." The Odyssey maneuvered carefully through the asteroid field, its shields flickering as debris grazed the hull. The beacon came into view moments later, its massive structure barely recognizable beneath layers of damage. "It's in bad shape," Carter said over the comms. "But it's still alive." "That's a miracle in itself." A small team boarded the beacon, including myself, McCall, and Carter. The ship's interior was dark and cold, its systems barely functional. "This place is a tomb," McCall murmured, her voice echoing in the silence. We moved cautiously through the corridors, our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air was thin, and the faint hum of failing systems filled the emptiness. In the central command room, we found what we were looking for: the beacon's control core. The holographic interface flickered weakly, its data fragmented but legible. "Captain," Carter said, studying the display, the beacon was carrying a massive supply of cryogenically frozen resources: seeds, DNA samples, and raw materials. If we can access its cargo, it could sustain the fleet for years. "And the survivors?" I asked. Carter hesitated. "I'm not sure there are any. The cryopods are still active, but there's no one awake to maintain them." As we worked to access the beacon systems, the ship shuddered violently. "Captain," McCall said, her voice tense, "we've got company." The display showed a swarm of unidentified vessels closing in on the asteroid field. Their design was alien, sleek, and predatory, with a faint red glow emanating from their hulls. "Hostiles," I said grimly. "Helios remnants?" McCall asked. "Doesn't matter," I replied. "We need to secure the beacon and get out of here." The Odyssey launched its fighters, engaging the swarm as the rest of the fleet moved to a safer position. The asteroid field became a war zone, debris scattering as energy blasts lit up the darkness. On board the beacon, Carter worked frantically to extract its cargo while McCall and I defended the ship against the intruders. The alien vessels seemed to adapt to every tactic we used, their attacks relentless and precise. "Captain," Carter called out, "I need more time." "You've got 5 minutes," I replied, firing at a drone that had breached the hull. "Make it count." The Odyssey fired its main cannons, clearing a path for the fleet as Carter completed the extraction. The beacon, now critically damaged, began to collapse, its structural integrity failing under the strain of the battle. "Carter now," I shouted. We evacuated just as the beacon imploded, its cargo safely transferred to the Odyssey. The alien vessels pursued us as we fled the asteroid field, but the fleet's combined firepower managed to drive them back. The fleet regrouped, its battered ships holding together through sheer determination. The cargo from the beacon was distributed, its resources breathing new life into the struggling vessels. "We've bought ourselves time," McCall said quietly as we stood on the bridge, watching the distant remnants of the asteroid field fade into the void. "For now," I replied. "But the galaxy isn't done with us yet." The Ark fleet moved onward, its survivors scarred but resilient. Humanity's survival had come at a cost: lives lost, ships abandoned, and moral lines crossed. But as I stared out at the stars, I knew one thing for certain. We weren't running anymore. We were fighting. The Ark fleet sailed through the void, its battered vessels a testament to humanity's resilience and its flaws. The Odyssey, once a symbol of strength and exploration, now carried the scars of impossible choices and the weight of countless lives. From the observation deck, I watched the stars drift by, each one a reminder of what we had left behind and what lay ahead. Earth was gone, reduced to a distant memory, but the Ark was alive, fractured, imperfect, but alive. McCall joined me, her footsteps quiet against the metal floor. "The fleet's stable for now," she said softly. "The resources from the beacon will last us a few more months, maybe longer if we ration carefully." I nodded, but the weight of her words pressed down on me. A few months wasn't a future, it was borrowed time. "We're alive," I said after a long pause. "That's more than most thought possible." She leaned against the railing, her gaze distant. "Do you ever wonder if it's enough? Just surviving?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and unanswerable. Survival was all we'd known for years, but it wasn't living, not really. The sacrifices we'd made, the lines we'd crossed, the people we'd left behind, they all whispered the same question. At what cost? In my quarters, I recorded the fleet's log. It was a ritual I'd maintained through every mission, every crisis. Words felt hollow against the enormity of what we'd endured, but they were all I had. "This is Captain Rogers, Mission Ark 01. The fleet has survived another trial. The beacon provided us with the means to continue, but the challenges ahead remain vast. Humanity was forged in struggle, and now, as we sail into the unknown, that struggle continues. I paused, the weight of everything I'd seen pressing against my chest. We've lost much: homes, lives, a planet. But we carry something more: the stubborn, reckless hope that defines us. That hope is fragile, but it's ours. And as long as the Ark sails, humanity sails with it. I ended the recording and leaned back, the silence of the room broken only by the faint hum of the ship's systems. The fleet's course was set for Alpha Centauri, the nearest star system with the possibility of habitable worlds. It was a gamble, like everything else we'd done, but it was one we had to take. The children aboard the Ark played in the cramped corridors, their laughter echoing faintly through the ship. They didn't know the full weight of what had been lost or the dangers that lay ahead. For them, the stars weren't a threat, they were a promise. And maybe that was enough. As the Odyssey moved through the endless night, I thought of Earth, of the countless faces we'd left behind, and of the ones who looked to us now for salvation. Humanity wasn't defined by its perfection, but by its persistence, its refusal to give up, no matter the odds. We were imperfect, we were reckless, we were survivors. And for now, that was enough. I returned to the bridge, standing before the vast expanse of stars. The crew worked quietly, each person carrying the unspoken burden of what lay ahead. "We're not done yet," I said to no one in particular. McCall glanced at me, a faint smile breaking her exhaustion. "No, Captain, we're not." The Ark sailed onward, into the unknown, its people bound not by certainty but by hope. And as long as there was hope, there was a future.